Amazon Frogbit has definitely been one of the easiest aquarium plants that I have grown. It helps create a lush jungle feel to my tanks and helps manage the water quality. Well, first let's go over some basic growing tips for Amazon Frogbit, and then later I want to share with you how this plant has really been a valuable resource for me on my fish keeping journey, and I believe it could be for you as well. Amazon Frogbit is a tropical floating plant and originally comes from Central and South America and has been grown in aquariums for many decades. It is quite adaptable to differing water parameters, from soft acidic water to high mineral alkaline water. And it grows best in medium to high lighting and works well for recreating aquarium fish's natural habitat, especially if they come from slow moving streams or stagnant ponds. It reproduces quickly by sending out runners and sprouting new plants, and so over time it can form a dense mat of vegetation. Frogbit has buoyant leaves with a distinctive spongy or foam-like texture on the underside of the leaf, which is what enables these plants to float. Be careful if you are keeping this plant with snails. Some snail species may feed on those spongy leaves to the point of killing the plant. I have not experienced this personally in my tanks. My pond, ram's horn, and Malaysian trumpet snails coexist peacefully with the Frogbit and only feed on the dead leaves. If you are not sure whether your snails will feed on Frogbit, test out only a few plants in the tank at first, and that way you have backup in case you need to grow it elsewhere. Unfortunately, Amazon Frogbit has become invasive in certain parts of the world, including California, parts of Asia, for example. So great care should be taken to keep it from escaping cultivation. So don't put it into any of your native waterways or put it in a situation where it could escape cultivation. But this is a good rule of thumb for all aquarium plants, many of which have the potential to become invasive in the right environment. In general, Amazon Frogbit does not like fast-moving water, where it is constantly being moved around, and it doesn't always like a tank lid covering it, where condensation is continuously dripping on it, which can cause the leaves to rot. Most of my tanks do not have lids that completely cover the top. The back few inches are left open so that I can grow riparian plants. So this also allows for enough airflow that keeps the Frogbit leaves dry on top. This tank lid has a few openings in the back, but it has not been a good long-term environment for the Frogbit because they do rot with the condensation dripping on the leaves constantly. Amazon Frogbit is a heavy feeder and may require liquid fertilizer if you see the leaves turning yellow or pale or slowly deteriorating over time. But also make sure the plants are getting enough light, otherwise fertilizing will not do much good. I've had good success growing Frogbit under full spectrum aquarium lights, but also bright LED shop lights. I don't have to use liquid fertilizer very often, but when I do, Aquarium Co-op's Easy Green works very well for me. Now let's go over some ways in which Amazon Frogbit can be a valuable resource for our fish tanks. It's a great indicator plant. When Frogbit is growing in a tank, I can easily see if there is an abundance of nutrients in the water without having to be surprised by an algae explosion. Because it grows so fast in the right conditions, it can outcompete algae, so if I start overfeeding, for example, it will become evident by the increased Frogbit growth, and I can easily remove the excess Frogbit, which is so much easier than removing algae, and cut back on feeding. Helps to maintain balance this way. It can also indicate a lack of nutrients. Often Frogbit will be the first plant to suffer when there's not enough nourishment, and I can start supplementing with fertilizer before other plants begin declining. In either case, testing your water on a regular basis is always a good idea, but having some type of visual indicator can also be helpful and can even be a reminder to test the water. I've also had tanks where Frogbit served only a temporary role. Newly set up tanks take time to balance and get established, and the Frogbit could help by consuming excess nutrients until the beneficial bacteria and other plants get established. And in some of these tanks, the Frogbit would slow its growth and slowly die off as the tank reached a balance and other plants would dominate. But in other tanks, the frogbit would just simply maintain a smaller population. So it was an indicator to me. It gave me some visual evidence so that I could know the tank was progressing and finding balance. Frogbit also provides shelter for fish. Many fish feel safer when there are some floating plants covering the water surface. It's an instinct that helps them avoid predation in the wild, and Amazon Frogbit can serve that role. Fish can be more comfortable, and it helps recreate their natural habitat and can encourage their natural behaviors. It provides opportunity for grazing. Many fish will graze on the frogbit roots, or the matter trapped in the roots, or the microorganisms living on them, which helps diversify their diet and potentially reduces the amount you have to feed by providing this secondary food source. However, frogbit can also let you know if you are underfeeding. I've had tanks that I thought did not need much feeding, but then one day I noticed that none of the frogbit had any roots at all. These plants let me know that I wasn't feeding enough, and after a few weeks of consistent feeding, the frogbit roots grew back because the fish stopped eating them all. Now, of course, with these goldfish, it doesn't matter how much I feed, they will eat the roots anyway. But I'm okay with that in this tank because it gives them another food source. Frogbit can help reduce water changes. Now, when frogbit is proliferating over your tank and you thin it out, you are in effect removing the nutrients the frogbit has consumed. And this can be somewhat of a substitute for or supplement to a water change. A water test should still be performed to verify, and a water change may still be needed. It just depends from one tank to another. But there are times when all I need to do is remove excess frogbit and I can skip the water change. Now, some hobbyists may get cranky at this idea, and if you're not comfortable with it, then keep doing regular water changes just for peace of mind. But if you're like me, I'm always looking for ways to reduce maintenance and interventions to these aquarium environments and still maintain a healthy system. And utilizing Amazon Frogbit really helps me do that. It's easy to think of plants in the aquarium simply as living decorations, but they can serve very practical and important roles in aquarium keeping, just like they do in nature. And these are just some of the ways plants like Amazon Frogbit can be a valuable resource to us in our fish keeping journeys. If you have any questions about growing Amazon Frogbit in your tanks or comments, then please leave them down below. I would love to hear from you. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.